Second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, should be good now.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Vancouver Creative Tech. So my name is Darren, and my co-organizer is Tim Rolls. And for those that are curious, we're a monthly meetup group of creative coders and experimental hackers and makers and so forth who get together and talk about kind of the latest stuff that people are working on in the Vancouver and also in the larger global community. And so basically we cover everything from creative coding to interactive installations to motion graphics to animation to everything that's kind of in that realm. And yeah, it's the last Tuesday of every month in general is when we like to do these. And I think what's really special is, like every week we get to, or every month we get to touch on a different topic. So I think before I introduce the speaker, I'm just going to let everyone know kind of some of our links where they can find us on social. We have an Instagram account, meetup.com, where a lot of you might have found us, also Facebook and Slack. And at some point in the presentation, Tim, if you have those links handy, we could post those in the chat. But anyways, yeah, feel free to follow us on other channels and kind of see what our team is up to. And sometimes we post kind of showcase videos that other people have been working on. But yeah, I think what's really exciting is I reached out to Adam, and I was really impressed with some of the work you've done at Go-To Productions. So Adam, I'm going to butcher your last name, so please correct me. Peregovits, is that close?
Sounds right, yeah.
You are a fellow alumni of the Center for Digital Media and a creative technologist that's been doing some really cool stuff recently with some of the bright downtown projection mapping on the Vancouver Hotel, and also an upcoming event, which maybe we can hear a bit about at BC Place. But the topic is going to be a short introduction from you, Adam, maybe show us some of the work you've done, and then we'll lead into a greater discussion about creating interactive and immersive environments in a post-pandemic era. So without further ado, Adam, please take it away.
Well, thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks for having me. This is great to be here. And yeah, I think I'll just start with a couple of words on my background and what started me on kind of this creative technology endeavor, and how that transitioned into today. So yeah, I mean, computers and art has always been like a fascination of mine from young age, and these evolved independently first, and then kind of merged later on. But some like a very significant point that I remember in my my life that's brought me where I am kind of today. Oops, I'm sharing the wrong screen here. Okay. So presentation should be visible, I guess. Yeah. So there was this one projection mapping show in Budapest, the city where I'm originally from, that I saw in 2012, and projection mapping was at its earlier stages then, but this was a show that really fascinated me and was something, the wow moment where this is fantastic, this is something that I want to do. There was a guy at the time, controlling the projection mapping live, I think with a Kinect or some early stage depth camera from the time. That was really cool, and yeah, that kind of took me towards this digital interactive kind of scene, and went for university in this subject, and actually met some of the people who created this initial piece that brought me on this path. So that was kind of a fun experience. But yeah, so I always kind of had this generalist approach to creative technology. I consider myself more of a designer initially, and more recently have transitioned into coding myself. And yeah, some recent projects that I've been building have been a project together with my good friend and creative partner Kavya, and we started AKA Collective. These are more artistic pieces that we've been building together, and they're all experience-based, kind of interactive pieces. Some, our first one of our first pieces was Self Suspense Ion, which was a interactive projected curved screen where you're in this dark room, and you sit down on this swing that is kind of this controller that controls the projection that you're seeing. So you're kind of suspended in this starry space, and you're moving through the stars by just swinging on the swing, and yeah, just by being in this dark space, it created this very meditative kind of relaxing ambiance. And yeah, so this was our first piece that we did together, and this had kind of a couple of iterations over the years, and I think this ties pretty well into the topic of today's meetup about the pandemic and post-pandemic kind of work, and how to create experiences around these constraints that we're just getting used to. So the first version of this was, of course, physical based, touching the swing, not sanitizing hands and stuff, which would freak people out right now, most likely. And this was going to go to France for an exhibit, but that's when the pandemic hit. So this moved into a digital space. So this is the digital gallery that they created to kind of replicate the experience that people would have had in France. And actually, creative studio, or a VR studio from Vancouver, Price, created a VR space where you could actually put on a headset and walk through the gallery as you would if you were in France. So they also had an exhibit here in Vancouver in the Alliance Française. So this was kind of a hybrid version of that. So there was a physical space where you could use a headset, and there were cleaning protocols involved, and social distancing, and all of that to ensure that it's wearing the headset is safe for everybody, and can kind of experience this kind of new technology without needing thousands of dollars of equipment to experience it, because VR is still kind of a niche market these days. But yeah, so people could come here and experience this French gallery at Alliance Française, or they could join in from home. And at the physical exhibit, we also had the swing up, so that created this kind of nice backdrop for everything, as well as we actually converted this physical piece, or this swing piece that was very tactile, or was created to be very tactile, and into a VR version. So we also created something that people could use with their headsets, and kind of translated from to a first-person experience, from a first-person experience to a third-person experience. So you would be in the space, and grabbing the swing, and pushing that in virtual reality. So that was kind of the transition from physical to kind of a virtual, half physical event. And as time passed, the next project that came our way was a completely AR, an augmented reality piece with Vancouver Mural Festival this February. And yeah, for this one, it was our concept, or our question of what is a box. So there were these boxes set up around the city with AR markers that people could could open up an Instagram filter and bring these little images to life. So this is kind of what the boxes look like, and we kind of played on that idea of using a box that opens up and brings things into the actual physical world. So here's a little snapshot of what it looked like through the AR filter. And yeah, so and I joined GoTo this year, and been working on some really cool projects together. And you also mentioned the Bright Downtown project that was projecting on the Fairmont Hotel in downtown Vancouver, which was a very cool experience, and a very big projection surface. So never worked with anything of this size before, personally. So and the concept here was also kind of creating content in a way that that is in line with the current health restrictions, and designed in a way that people wouldn't congregate all that much. So there were short clips that were looping one after the other, and kind of changing color and looping around. So you could be there, stick around for 5, 10, 20 minutes, and enjoy pieces of the show, and move along. So it wasn't a show that had a very specific start and end that you would have to everybody would have to be there to experience together, but it was going on pretty much all night, and people could come and go and experience this beautiful projection. So we had 8 25K projectors for this, which was a pretty impressive setup, and yeah, it looked fantastic at night. So this is kind of one of the clips that was playing, and I think there was about 15, 20 of these like 30-second clips that were just coming after one another, and then kind of changing colors and looping around. Yeah, and the next event that's coming up that I'm really excited about and has been in the works for a couple of months now is going to be launching in a couple of weeks at BC Place. Events called Wings and Wizards, and it's a touch-free interactive walkthrough experience within this magical wizarding world, and you'll have a magic wand that will be kind of your controller or guide throughout this experience. And we're using a variety of sensors and gadgets to kind of track and allow you to create magic and cast spells in this magical world. So something that I'm really excited about, and if you guys have the chance, I would really suggest checking it out. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I had prepared.
Thanks, Adam. That's amazing. Thanks for showing us all that. Yeah, I mean, where to start? So many questions for you. I guess I was just curious, going back to that swing project that you had, what was the inspiration for that? And what was the experience you were trying to evoke for the participants?
So we were really aiming for kind of this relaxing meditative space that we created. So the first one especially was very secluded. It was a completely one-person experience. You'd had to go through a black curtain into this completely black space, and it was just you and this one swing that was suspended, and it was kind of detaching from technology a little bit. through technology in a way, if that makes any sense. So yeah, you could go into this room and really experience this, you know, visceral feeling that you're suspended in space and time and traveling through the stars a little bit, and being able to do so with something as simple as, you know, riding a swing.
And what was the variety of reactions that you got from folks on the
Um,
swing?
well, and there was a good variety. Like people were talking about memories from their childhoods, and you know, swinging under the stars at night, and how it really reminded some people of that.
Mhm.
Some people really were enthusiastic about having this in more of a club space, so like in a party environment, or perhaps doing this with multiple people. So yeah, there was a really widespread and reaction from, you know, being very meditative, and you know, just disconnecting, and some people being really into it and just like wanting to swing through the stars and fly away, kind of thing.
Were there any
That's
motion sickness issues with that one?
For this one, there was only one person that said they had some issues with motion sickness, but they also said they're prone to that, and they are usually sick from just riding the swing anyway. So
Right.
it wasn't really um, connected with the visuals, I would think, and we got pretty good frame rates. I think we had near 60 frame rates, and a pretty accurate tracking. So it was kind of a smooth visual. So there was not a lot of motion sickness, or people did not mention that.
interesting. I was actually going to ask that too, Justin, because I was thinking some people might, you know, get nauseous. But what's interesting is it's powered by the power of their swing, right? So
Hmm.
they're kind of almost in a way choosing how much they want to experience the
Absolutely.
parallax effect as well, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So if they want to dial it down a little bit, they can just, like, you know, kind of put their feet down and slow down, and yeah, the effects would be a lot less that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really interested. So getting to the topic of tonight. So what was the biggest thing that you noticed was a difference in designing post-pandemic experiences? And that, you know, encompasses things like how many people in the space and how
Mhm.
quickly people are moving through an experience. How would you say that's changed from, say, 2019?
Quite significantly. I mean, you know, I think part of a really good physical exhibit or experience is good wayfinding, and kind of guiding people in a way that they know where they have to go, and what to do, and just elevating to that to the next level a little bit these days of how to do. And of course, we have to plan for, you know, how many people can be in the same space at the time, especially like the new event that we're doing at BC Place, is going to be, we're expecting a lot of people to go through there. So we have very strict timing throughout the whole experience. So every room that they walk through throughout the experience is timed down to the second, and we have to keep track of where people are in the space, so we can know when to let the next group in to really be safe. And yeah, and also a big shift is, you know, for the first year, physical events or physical experiences were almost completely gone. So there weren't any. There was a big shift towards, you know, AR and VR, and all of these new technologies that don't require you to be somewhere or touch something. So
Mhm.
that was definitely a shift, but I think everybody is quite hungry for something, you know, tacit um, and experiential and physical. So hopefully this will be a good year for that. I think it's off to a good start.
I want to bring in Ed Madajemu in this conversation because Ed's been working on some amazing stuff. A VR comic book was one of his projects at Emily Carr. And Ed, I'm sure that you've, if you're on the call, maybe there's a change in how public installations and putting on VR helmets has changed in this period versus in 2019. Have you noticed, like things like cleaning protocols and like, because that's something you have to touch, right? And maybe Adam, you had the same experience when you were adapting your swing for a VR experience, how that might have changed the cleaning protocols and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Way to put him on the spot.
Yeah. Well, I just know this would be something up your alley, so I had to bring you in here. What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
No, it's definitely been a huge, like hygiene is a lot more of a major thing, because before you'd go to a lot of VR events and physically, and you just kind of take people in and out. You'd clean them, obviously, but like people would kind of rush into it. But now people are a lot more hesitant to like go into things naturally. Okay, so like I haven't actually been to a physical event for any of this kind of thing, and since the pandemic started. So I actually haven't seen too many people react in person, but like a lot of things I've worked on I worked on 1 or 2 AR things, and I find that's actually a lot, at least that seems to be a much safer or easier, more accessible thing for people than VR now, because VR is kind of, it's strapped to your head, versus with AR, you just kind of pull out your phone and look at it. So there's a lot more space for people to view the same thing while still be socially distant. So it's definitely been I think it's been a huge shift in terms of like exhibit spaces and how people tend to interact with it. Whereas I found VR is kind of going the other way. It's more about multiplayer and networking now versus it's less about being in a precise location. It's about bridging the gap between people, while AR seems to be the only thing that's thriving within this sense of being out in the real world together. So I feel like it's kind of like a divergent point for both of them right now. Since the pandemic anyway. That's just been my experience with it. Adam, I'm pretty sure you have a lot more.
No, I mean there was only one VR event, physical VR event during the pandemic that we were working on, and yeah, so it, like the cleaning protocols had to be very, very thorough. There was no hesitancy from people there, but they pre-registered for the event, so they were aware of what they're getting into, and people people were waiting for the stations to free up, so cleaning protocols would go on for minutes to make sure that every part of the headset is cleaned and disinfected. So didn't notice any hesitancy, but yeah, that definitely AR is something that has a much larger reach, and everybody has the technology already to be able to experience it.
I wanted to touch upon as well, this isn't just about creating immersive spaces, but also interactive spaces. And I know a bit about the publications that have talked about this magic exhibit, that there's a magic wand of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just curious, without giving too much away, how do you design for an interactive experience where there's still no physical touching of objects?
So people get their own magic wand. So that's part of the exhibit, that you will receive a magic wand at the beginning of the experience, and that's what you use throughout the experience, and you get to keep that and take it home with you. So that is kind of the one person touch only kind of solution that we were able to do, and there's no touch or physical interaction throughout the experience. I mean, everything you do is with your wand and it's touch free. So it's basically waving of your wand and casting spells, and you don't have to touch anything other than your wand.
What's in the wand, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I don't want to give too much away.
Trade secret.
But there's a light source and the wand.
You're gonna have to find out, Sam, by
Wireless?
buying your own wand.
Okay, I'll check it.
I was curious, and of course, we're talking about museums as well, right? So folks from NGX also might be experiencing the challenge of both retrofitting previously touch-enabled displays as well as creating new forms of interactives that are completely touch-free. I don't know, Justin, do you have any thoughts about some of the challenges around that?
Yeah, I'll note, like, we did do a project that was with a no touch interface, but that did end up going back to a touch interface just because of challenges of just people are probably going to touch it anyways, and just understanding how that's going to work. So I did kind of think it's like, oh, maybe once everyone's vaccinated, all that stuff's out the window. So we will see with that specifically. So but I think it's like a lot of things were just put on hold for about a year, and things are kind of cruising ahead as if everything's going to go back to normal. So I do think cleaning protocols and that sort of thing will stay in place. And honestly, that's a good thing, that there's been plenty of screens and stuff like that in the past where it's like this could usually really use a wipe down. So I think that will be just something that will occur more often after all of this. But yeah, as far as the no touch interfaces for things like gestural walls and things like that, it's not, not really those things are still in play for sure. But I think if it's replacing just a regular old informational touchscreen with a no touch solution, I don't think that's going to be as widespread as we might have thought at one point. So we'll see see what the appetite is going forward.
If you wouldn't mind expanding upon that a bit, what are some of the challenges with motion sensing and no touch sensors that you've experienced?
It was with Magic Leap, and I wasn't working on the project directly, but it was bridging what the content needed to do, and the interactivity of that. So that was essentially the challenge, where it was just for the particular timeline got a little too tough.
Mimi, you can unmute if you want to ask your question. That's a good question that you brought up about congestion.
Yeah. So sort of, I mean, we all know the particular virus we're being terrorized by right now is not actually transmitted by touch, but sort of more by aerosol. So indoor spaces are bigger concern, I think. Would you predict more outdoor installations, like either Adam or Justin, who was talking? And following up with that, I think Adam talked about how he was trying to disperse people more with the projection on the hotel wall by having smaller loops. Are there other design sort of ideas for encouraging people to be socially distanced but still like be interactive?
I mean, I think definitely for outdoor experiences and projection mapping, these are things that have great potential, especially for the summer when it's not raining in Vancouver and we don't have to worry about tech getting soaked. But yeah, I think just limiting the amount of people that can be in an enclosed space at a time is the biggest part of it. So yeah, just having one group who are already at their own bubble and having them move through a space just themselves, and time everything in a way to allow for them to finish and then let the next group in to kind of experience.
There's also another interesting component, which is theme parks, which are, I guess, sort of like the biggest business model for interactive spaces. They have this metric of throughput, right? Which is like people per hour, or like how many groups per ride unit. And they like Disneyland, of course, is like the evil mouse empire, has like gotten everything down to the second. Obviously, like they're impacted when fewer people per ride can enter the ride queue. And then also, like, I guess you have to compensate by having people in a space for a shorter amount of time. So are you, when you're designing a space like for this magic exhibit, are you thinking about like how much time people would want to spend in a space versus how much time you want, like, they can spend there?
Absolutely, yeah. So everything has to be kind of spread out and timed in that manner to make sure that people have enough time to kind of do the core experience. That's the magic of that space, and allow for them to experience that fully, and then kind of help them guide them forward, and that can be done with like very subtle things like just lighting changes. If we're getting close to the time limit that they're allowed to spend in the space, just like controlling the lighting, dimming, or kind of guiding them through to the next room is something that's quite practical.
I'm gonna throw my colleague Tim Fernandez in the spotlight for a sec. Tim and I worked on an installation for MOA. Let's see, we got another question here. The Museum of Anthropology at UBC, and ours was heavily a touch-based interactive exhibit. And so Tim, I don't know, do you think that would ever be possible to take our interactive weaving loom and make it completely non-touch based? Or would that like ruin the experience fundamentally?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of our fundamental goals with that project was to make the design process more tactile. So it might be shooting ourselves in the foot there.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that we just have to kind of bury it, because we're trying to make people feel like they're physically weaving with threads. That would be the opposite of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Stuff that you've always wanted to know about these kind of exhibit designs in general? I think here we go. We do have several questions in the chat. Alexander, let's see. Cool. Okay. Let's actually. So it looks like Alexander, you posted a link. Do you want to share that link and maybe tell us a bit about what you worked on there?
Oh yeah, sure. Hi. It's interesting the whole thing, having an interactive space in a COVID era, and something very strange had happened. Not just with this project that I was working on, but also in US Media Gallery and other galleries who were doing interactive installation. The limited cluster of people, what actually happened, because it was all curated and guided spaces, the interactive experience was kind of better from the people who participated. They had more time to interact with the space because of the smaller crowd. They had more time to actually spend in a place. So it's kind of strange. It kind of COVID worked for us. Same as in the Union exhibition, which was interactive video with the camera tracking and some visual sensors, end up to kind of be better as it would if we would have just have an open access where we could not control the amount of participants that will interact. So just, I don't know, it's a strange thing, but kind of COVID worked for us. I mean, it's sad to say that, but it's true. And I find also that the camera tracking is a good way of having a no touch experience. And also when we were doing, when Nancy and Kira, we were doing the concept of the interactive space, we made so that the cluster of individual interactivity are always 2 meters apart. So it was kind of interesting to actually work with that in mind. So everything that people moved around projected video, the way how we actually track the interaction with the camera was always meant that will even warn people if they actually go closer than 2 meters apart. I don't know if that helps to anyone. So
no, that's very interesting. So it's almost,
yeah.
it's almost like the exhibit itself was kind of an experiment in keeping apart.
Yes,
There was a feedback loop.
exactly, and I think similar had happened with the newest media gallery. I mean, they actually created that in like one space, and they are putting one person or two people at the time. And what happened is people, I guess, were so wanting to get out of the home, but in a space, in a safe space, that they had amazing amount of visitors. I think something like 40,000 people saw the newest media gallery exhibition, which is unheard of for the media exhibition. And we also had a lot of visitors at the RAG. Yes, this is a link. It's called the Union Land, and it's until the June 2nd. And the Union Land is not in the New Media Gallery. It is at the Richmond Art Gallery.
Were you actually working with an artist on that project as well?
Yes,
I wonder if this is the same person that we were told to work with or to reach out to.
Oh yes, I worked with Kieran Bumper and actually Nancy Lee.
Yes.
I was one of the consultants and actually mentor for the interactive audio system. There is a 16-channel interactive audio system that actually tracks other people in the space using fifth order ambisonics.
That's funny you said that because actually, I think there's a bit of feedback there.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Nancy Lee is actually someone we're thinking about approaching for our next meetup. So that would be great timing if we could get a bit more context for what your whole group has been working on.
I can send you some of the links of the credits. It was a really long project. We almost worked like a whole year on it. We also worked. It was me and Sami Chan that did a lot of technical part of the interactive space. I do encourage you if you have time to actually visit the spot, but we had fears that it would not be as successful, but it was the opposite, which is quite. I just give you the whole credit list. It was a long project. We put it almost for a year, working during COVID times and testing interactivity in a physical space. That was challenging.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to exploring this more in our next meetup next month. Very exciting.
Exhibition closes on the 5th, so please come in. And we were trying to do like a touchless experience. I just came in. I was late. I was just coming from a meeting with like Nancy and Kieran just this very second. So sorry for joining a group a bit late.
No worries. This is brilliant timing, so thanks for sharing. Does anyone go ahead?
I was just going to say that I was also going to make the point that I think that it's possible that now that people are used to these kinds of restrictions and staying farther apart and stuff, that might actually be advantageous, like Alexander was mentioning, because when you're working on these things, one of the main challenges, especially if you're doing something that is based on like camera tracking or like, tracking people in a space, is like, okay, so what happens when like 40 people cram in there and now your sensors have no idea what's going on, and then the people are confused because they think it's broken or they can't, like they don't know if it's supposed to be like that, like and so now when you have a situation where you're kind of controlling people in smaller little bubbles, that might, I think I see a lot of situations where that would just make it a lot easier as a designer or artist to put an experience together.
No, that's a great point. It kind of creates a nice buffer and a nice clear space for people. That's awesome. Actually, to what Mimi said earlier, I really wanted to go back to Adam discussing the idea of outdoor installations. So you said you were first inspired in Budapest by that projection mapping, and were you involved? What role did you play in the Bright Downtown exhibit, and how much were you influenced by your earlier inspirations?
So I was kind of loosely involved in the Bright Downtown when I was on site, setting up tech and making sure everything's running smoothly. But it was more the art team from GoTo who created the content for that and designed it in a way to allow for people to kind of flow through the space without complicating too much.
Because I noticed that as well, was that it was very short little loops.
Mhm.
And something, I don't know, does anyone else notice this too, which is kind of psychological, that the mind is looking for kind of a narrative, first of all, but also when you start seeing a loop, when you notice something loops, you kind of feel like you've completed that experience. And I definitely felt that way. I felt like I watched it for about 10, 15 minutes. And as soon as I started to see that same loop, and not just one loop, but two loops next to each other, I said, okay, I've had enough, and I walked away.
Mhm.
So I didn't know that was intentional. I thought that was just the limitation of the variety of, because I'm sure you had some kind of algorithm or playlist that would randomly pick different loops.
Yep.
But
That was-
I didn't know that was built into the function. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that was built into the purpose from the get-go to kind of allow for people to move around the space, and that was kind of the request from the client from DVVIA.
Interesting. Do you see yourself working on another installation of that type?
I would like to. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think outdoor interactive experiences could be a really cool space to explore. And I mean, we've explored that a bit with AR stuff and in our work with AKA, but yeah, definitely more physical and more experiential and immersive things outdoors could be really cool.
What about physical, outdoors, and participatory? So things where people can interact with a projection map from
Yeah.
their phone, for example. Is that something you've thought about exploring?
That could be a very interesting one. Yeah, something that I've seen along those lines is people that received lasers for a projection mapping show.
Yeah.
And they were projecting, or they were tracking where the lasers were pointing at the projection mapping and kind of controlling the visuals based on where the laser pointers were. So that's kind of an interesting approach as well.
Was that using some kind of computer vision approach, or?
So I think it was just a camera mainly that was looking for that specific color of laser on the projection, and then influencing the projection itself based on those points.
Was it a
Oh,
bunch of cats trying to on the beams?
Yeah, I did something like that during the Olympics out here. Actually, we did some like guerrilla laser tag stuff with doing laser graffiti on the like Olympic buildings that they put up, the like, temporary structures. It was kind of crazy actually, because we were purely guerrilla, and we did it downtown, like right where the SkyTrain lets out. Can't remember what that building is right there, but you know, there's like that London Drugs on Georgia. Yeah, so like there's like a huge wall right behind the SkyTrain. Anyway, long story short, there was a bunch of like lineup fences. I can't remember the proper name for those, for the SkyTrain, and people started like lining up to like come and use our laser pointer on the wall. Like they thought it was some kind of Olympic like event going on. It was kind of epic.
Yeah. Also, I really was impressed. I'm going to get this wrong. Was it Tangible that built the O installation, the Science World miniature light controller?
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool. And I couldn't get enough of that. I felt like I was some kind of inhuman, that was the ability to kind of shape certain lights and certain effects that people could see all around. I like the idea of something that I could control that could be witnessed by other people. And I think something about light projection at night captivates us, like children. We see something and it's just so mesmerizing. Questions for you. Ed asks, did you ever have instances where people hung around together longer than intended? So I'm assuming this is based on the Bright downtown exhibit.
I mean, it's like it was in front of the art gallery, so it's kind of a large plaza. So there might have been people sticking around longer than that, but that wasn't an issue because like the general flow was moving. So if there were a couple of people sticking around, it didn't really matter all that much. It would have been a problem if everybody stuck around, but thankfully the idea of shorter clips and looping things worked and people were moving around.
There's something in theme park design called weenies. Does anyone know this term? It's a very old school 50s term, but it was like the idea of like luring people, right? So if you're in an outdoor installation, like what's the first thing that's going to catch their attention that's going to make them want to go over there? And for me, it was actually the sound. I thought that the sound effects and the speakers did a really good job of attracting my attention first. And then that caused me to kind of look up. I'm just curious, what role in your work, Adam, has sound played at attracting audiences?
Attracting audiences. Well, for the swing piece, the self-suspense was a very ambient kind of spacey audio that really lended to the ambiance of the setting. I think, and people kind of heard that even before they entered the experience. So that is, I guess, a good example. But yeah, I think just audio in general completely elevates visuals to the next level. To having audio is key to really create something that is immersive and captivating.
Alexander, you said in Montreal, Zurich, and Berlin, they had some interesting sonification interactions. Yeah, it'd be great to see some examples of what those sounded like.
I will try to send you the links, and it's funny that some of them were even done in the pandemic era, just getting those kind of small clusters of people in the parks and the areas, and there were even just was on Nota meeting, there was kind of sonification interaction that people could log in with their phone in their own cluster, and then can create a big ambisonic array with all the cell phones working together in the same spot. So it was quite interesting, and they still can kind of keep a distance. And I think also that using the smartphones as a potential interaction in the space, it's a good way how to avoid a touch.
So it looks like we got some more folks asking for some links to these. So now you've whetted our appetite.
I'll do my best.
I notice always in Europe, Europeans are always an average 5 to 10 years ahead in the art scene.
Montreal is actually has been doing a lot of stuff in a public art installation, even when I was there, and I think we can. They don't need to be as complex. I mean, it's funny how sometimes a small thing like, I don't know, a tracking of the cluster of people and then create a different soundscapes, or even just a different generative visuals, even as simple as that, people can be actually quite mesmerized.
I think it's very interesting to explore that.
Go
ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to feed off that, what you're saying. That sounds like a really great example of what I kind of think of as like indirect interaction, which I think is something that is a really fruitful concept to consider when you're trying to avoid high touch or directly engaging or directly interactive setups, because you can create a lot of like dynamism and it kind of create evolving systems based on the system's interaction with the environment, which also implicitly interacts with people who are there, as just one example. But like you can create interactivity and a sense of engagement with people without having to have them directly controlling the system that you're making. And I think it's really is fruitful to open up kind of what interactivity means to include more kind of like passive interactive forms as well as the direct like one-to-one interactions.
Or just on that note, I wanted to ask, how do you, like within a system, within a way of approaching interactivity whereby it's less about the audience being in full control, how would you approach establishing like the affordances the audience has? Because that's, I found that that's a huge thing with creating interactive spaces, especially. It's like people have all these like these notions of like what I can and can't do, and tend to get disappointed when they can't do certain things or things that their minds immediately rush towards doing. So I'm just wondering how like approaching that, like solving that conundrum would be.
I guess that's kind of an open question, but I think personally, I think that that's kind of where the artistic goals and design goals kind of may rub up against each other and in some ways clash. Because sometimes when you're creating artworks, you're not necessarily trying to make something as transparent as possible. But obviously, when you're creating interactive experiences, though, you're right, those affordances have to be upfront for people. So I think that's more of a subjective question, really. It's like how much do you want to afford the audience in the experience you're building? Because that's not always, you don't always want to make everything as transparent as possible.
This is actually a discussion that I've been seeing a lot of in terms of video games and game design, where like a lot of like more modern games will hold your hand as much as possible. And it's like, you know, there's a glowing breadcrumb trail on the ground and it tells you exactly where you need to go and who you need to talk to, you know, keep moving forward in whatever it is you're trying to do. And then there's also kind of like the counter to that where, you know, now it's almost a novelty for someone to produce a game that doesn't do those things and kind of just lets you explore the space. And I think that's kind of the similar sort of idea of like active and passive sort of thing.
And also, I think virtualizing spaces. So when I was creating a sound system for this, for the union, I automatically created a binaural mix so it can be broadcasted over the web for all the 16 channel speakers. But what we didn't have time is we were thinking that we can also have a space that you can have a multiple small spaces that can interact over the internet and kind of create a real-time / virtual space interaction among the people. And I think that's kind of interesting, where the physical space can actually create somewhere else a virtual space.
That's super cool. I love the sound of that.
Or we can talk about it. I mean, he's a publication columnist, can do a lot of stuff like that. Like he should chime in, but I think he just left.
Yeah, I think he just left as well. But maybe in the next discussion where we're talking about the exhibit that you were talking about at New Media Gallery, we can maybe bring in some of those ideas again.
And check Union if you have time. It will be interesting to see the camera tracking and those clusters. I'm always interested in like input of the people, how they perceive the space, and did they understood interaction? And that's a very good question when you actually do with when you deal with the physical space and you bring somebody in the space. Do you really guide them as a breadcrumbs, or you just let them figure that sound out? So that's a very interesting question.
Yeah, to Tim's point as well, like what I would call indie games or art games, kind of like to defy the convention of, you know, onboarding and leading the player through kind of a set, you know, series of tasks to perform, because it's almost like in the same way that movies are cliche, games can become cliche. And so it's always refreshing to see an indie game kind of play with the paradigm, or like play with the cliches and kind of upend them and make the player do something unexpected. Or I mean, the joy of discovering things as a player, making more of a mystery game that might even question the mechanics of what you think of as a typical video game. I think, Tim, you remember the Stanley Parable and from our CDM, right? So for those that haven't played it, it's a really, Adam, you probably played that as well. But it's a, you know, sort of a paradox of like, it's not so much about dying and coming back, but it's kind of like it's all about choices and all about, you know, fate and how much you feel like you're in control of your life. Yeah, I think taking those same ideas from games and seeing how they might play out in virtual or physical spaces is kind of the next step, because it's not, maybe it's not black and white. Maybe it's not like, oh, it's cool and it's interactive, I wave my hand and this light shows up, or nothing happens. Maybe there's a third possibility, right? Maybe there's some other exploration.
Interesting that you mentioned that. I spent 2 decades at EA making audio interactive systems for the game and actually making audio for the game. And physical space, interaction in a physical space, it's its own beast. I mean, I did a lot of them and it's really very unique. Physical space brings so much challenges of how you can build interaction, because there is no guidance to a controller. Do this, do that. There is so many variables. Even if you track with a camera, depending on a person's height, will depend the amount of precision of your tracking.
I just want to, we were talking about like audio experience earlier. Do people know about this artist duo, Janet Cardiff and George Miller?
No.
Oh, yeah, they like, I first encountered them like many years ago, where they just did like sort of stereo audio experiences where like it's a site specific piece where you take a walk, like a sort of, they will tell you how to walk in the piece and then story will happen. And they've since, you know, updated that practice to using phones, and then basically you walk around this path with phone, the video playing kind of matches what you were seeing in front of you, but with different people.
You should really reach out to Ove about that, because Holland has just got the location type positioning, so you can actually map to from the Holland a specific video or specific audio in a location in space, so it will actually play as you pass that particular space.
What's the mechanism for tracking?
Well, it's just your phone and the application called Holland. And then you can join with the other Holland users, and then they can send you their allocations so you can track them. If you go just to the Apple Store and just type in Holland, you will actually see it.
But is it using like?
It's using gyro and the positioning, GPS positioning of the phone.
Oh, okay.
Has anybody here done the Valley Lumina walk at Whistler that Moment Factory created?
Yes.
Yes. What did folks think about that experience?
I think it's a really good example of the potentials or possibilities of outdoor interactive immersive experiences. I mean, yeah, it was a very, very powerful piece in my opinion.
It's interesting because I'd never before seen an experience that was so long,
Mm-hmm.
that was mapped to like a kilometer or two, it felt like, of going up and downhill, experiencing these lights along a path that are drawing you into different sections of a story, right? So it's like, to the point earlier about moving people through a space, there would be a period of time when you would walk up a hill to a short, you know, kind of outcropping, and then there'd be this experience that you'd watch for 3 to 5 minutes and then keep walking. So everyone kind of had this natural flow. And I wonder how long they spent prototyping and I mean, how do you test something like that before you release it to a live audience? Because there's so many different factors that all have to play so well together.
That one was super interesting because I think that they built off an existing trail. So the context kind of set the stage for a lot of the interactions, which was really interesting. But yeah, that was a cool piece that actually used the forest itself as the backdrop and surface for projection. And I think, yeah, that was a really interesting use of nature and a physical outdoor space. Definitely recommend.
And I guess in hindsight, probably fairly COVID friendly. Like, I mean, obviously you're not worrying about sanitizing the trees, but there I guess there could still be some risk of people touching the installations.
I think there was a couple little puzzly type things. Like
yeah,
it was a
it was a
while ago, but I
telescope
remember
that you had to look
something
through.
something about a radio that you needed to like
Yes.
do some kind of puzzle to get it on the right frequency or something. Yeah, so they might need to rework that, but
That was extra cool though. You could tell people who play video games like understood it instinctively, and then the older people there were just like, "Wait, are you allowed to touch that?"
yeah, almost everyone just kind of looked at it and they were like, "Oh, that's weird," and then walked away and didn't try to interact with it. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to try to think about creating something that's in a circular space or something that's in a really long space, like a hike. And I mean, like, I guess Moment Factory started that Valley concept in Montreal, and then they adapted it to different parks around the world. So I think there's one in like Kyoto, there's one in Vancouver, I think there's a second one in Quebec City. And you're right, they have to adapt this narrative, or they probably create a new narrative for each location. Yeah, so I thought that was really fascinating. What did you guys think of the projections in that experience? Do you feel like they were engaging, or kind of, I don't know, what did they make you feel? Because I know that Moment Factory is all very much about emotional, arcs. Did you feel an impact when you saw that?
I think the projecting on these kind of translucent net surfaces really creates a magical effect, and especially seeing that in forest, kind of like holograms of light, or yeah, figures of light moving around in the forest are really powerful ways to kind of yeah, play on the emotions of people. So I think that was a nice way of doing it, and incorporating like natural elements like the trees, and projecting on the trees themselves, and giving them faces and stuff. So yeah, I think that they used the space, the forest itself quite well to kind of create content and the story.
Adam, I know that you're busy. I know you have a lot of projects that you're working on, but just while we still have you, I really want to know what's next for you, and what do you want to explore as you're either professionally with your company, or even on your own and part of your AKA collective. Like, what's your next big challenge you want to tackle?
Very good question. I mean, right now I'm very focused on the Wings and Wizard projects, and wrapping that up. But things, I mean, creating something with audio that has a stronger, the piece has a stronger element of music or audio, and having visuals that kind of tie together with that is something that I've briefly dabbled with in the past, but something that I'm really interested in doing in the future. So I think audio reactive things are definitely a cool project to look forward to, but no very specific next plan next project that I have planned for yet.
Is your group open to collaborating with other interactive companies in Vancouver?
Absolutely. So very much so.
Where can we find you? Where's your top links?
So I think the best way to find us would be on our website with AKA Collective. Just share the screen here if I still have anything up there, but I don't.
Well, that's my background as well.
Yeah, I'll just post some links in the chat here for our website, and you can follow us on Instagram.
And I guess Kavya, you're here as well. What are you interested in working on as part of the collective?
Oh, well, I think that to echo what Adam said, that we've been thinking about a piece that has a bit more sound attached to it. Yeah, and I think with all of our conversations, there are a couple of ideas and that are just ideas. So it's more about which one we want to execute. But yeah, no, we're definitely open to collaboration. Yeah, because those conversations tend to lead to and evolve into much bigger ideas. The more diverse group of people we tend to work with, but yeah.
Well, there's a lot of outdoor events coming up. I mean, in the summer, it's usually a good time, and also in the fall. So some street installations and stuff that, you know, H4 takes part in. It'd be great to see some more work from you guys along. You've got a very promising future ahead, I think. That's awesome. And thank you so much, Alexander, for posting your personal website as well. This is fantastic.
It's still in the making. I'm a very bad PR person for myself. I suck at it. I must say, maybe it's my age. I can talk, but you know.
I think portfolios are something that taunt everybody in this community, and just keeping that up to date and presenting your work in a way that you're happy with is always a challenge.
And Adam,
when I finish documentation about union and all the binaural stuff and 16-channel stuff, is going to be a very long document with the OSC messaging, and maybe something that might interest you from the AKA a collective. We use the markers to embed the OSC messages that we drove videos from with an audio. So that's how we were able to kind of sync the audio with the video perfectly. And then we added interactivity in the middle. So it'll be a combination of something happens at the right time, at the right sonic cue, and you can choose either to, when you manipulate an audio, you automatically manipulate a video with it, but you still stay in a kind of bars and beat cues. I don't know if that's something that's would be interesting for you, but I would love to do something as a public art. I don't think that we have enough public art in Vancouver, and we have so much spaces. I mean, it doesn't need to be something immensely complex, but it's a walking city. We have so many parks. We can have all this small little installation on it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I agree. Vancouver needs more public interactive art for sure.
I would love to see another bright downtown type installation, but maybe a different building or a different space would be really cool. Or maybe something by the water. I think there was a one that took place under. Does anyone remember this? It was under a bridge. And there was a video that was projected, I think, of a salmon spawning.
Yeah.
This was probably 5 years ago. Mimi, do you remember who was involved in that?
I think it was like a nonprofit group specifically, doing salmon preservation. I'm not sure if they were like an artist group.
Nettie Wilds. Or Wild, yes.
Demon Digital did the website and stuff, but I don't think they did the projection underneath and stuff like that. But that actually just came to mind earlier, Darren, when you were talking about just the crowds for these things, because even for that, if you had to go to this certain little spot under the bridge where the audio was, at the certain times, and it was actually kind of packed. So even these outdoor things that you think, yes, it's open air and all that, but it was still one of those things of like trying to find a spot to like sit or lie down was mildly awkward then, and I don't know how that would be if that was this summer, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. You wouldn't want to have it be a really confined location. You'd still have to project on an area that would be adjacent to like a wide open section. Yeah, for sure.
I just looked them up. The organization is called Uninterrupted, and they're actually doing a VR tour like this summer.
Oh, really?
Apparently.
Can you post the link, Mimi, if you found it?
Okay. Yep.
Is it uninterrupted.com?
.ca. Uninterrupted.ca.
.ca. Yeah, see, this is the problem. Sometimes these events are happening and I have no idea in Vancouver. Like they're shared like 2 days before it goes live. So it's good to know in advance. Great. Okay, I'll have to check it out. So I guess they consider it the outdoor move this summer. Interesting. Yeah, we'll see how they've adapted for COVID.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Adam also, have you heard of the Cooper Hewlett Museum? Does that ring a bell?
I have not heard of that.
So this is a museum. I think it's in New York. It's in the East Coast of the US. And when you were talking about the magic wand, it reminded me a bit of what this museum is doing, which is basically they give visitors a pen and they go into this museum and they touch different touchscreens or different kind of interfaces. And they actually record that piece of art. So like that pen sort of like taps it and stores it, I guess, in a virtual memory bank or identifies it. And it allows them to sort of make a custom collection so that they can then project it. And everything they tap in this museum is something that is part of their collection.
Very cool.
Yeah. Huh. And yeah, apparently it was a big success to see how people were able to sort of feel like they had a sense of their own curation of stuff that they found interesting. I've never seen that kind of in a theme park, although I know that Disney and Universal are starting to move towards, like, especially the Star Wars land is starting to move towards like collecting kind of a personal, like you get your own lightsaber and you get to have your own adventure. I wonder if people are moving in that direction overall in immersive space design, like personalizing the experience.
Yeah, definitely. And having devices that you can take with you, as in this case, is definitely something I think we'll see in the next couple of years.
I think just with RFID wristbands and tickets and stuff like that, that's still going to be going on for sure.
Yeah, and so and part of this event that you're working on right now, part of the wand is the price of the wand is part of the ticket price as well.
So I believe there's one wand included per ticket, but please check the website.
I did look it up. It's you can get a multi-wand pack.
Yes,
or something like that. So.
Yeah. So it's a great merchandising opportunity too. I'm sure that it will pay dividends.
The audience, but
yeah, yeah. No, I know it's probably directed more towards younger children, but I think it's still an interesting idea to see how it's done, like technically, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and thanks. Yeah, Gemma just posted the link for the event here in the chat. So that's the website for the event.
Yeah. That's awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Adam while we have him, or anything else you wanted to bring up about the topic tonight?
All right. Well, I think we had some pretty good discussions here. Very, very interesting topics that came up, and yeah, thank you again for having me on. This was very cool.
Yeah, thanks again for being had, as they say. We really look forward to seeing what you come up with next, especially this audio reactive idea that you're experimenting with.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you in the future.
All right. Well, take care, Adam, and thanks for joining.
You too. Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, all of you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone. That was great.
All right. Shall we wind down for the evening? I'm sure people are tired of being on Zoom, so it's How are things going at Emily Carr, Tim? Are they still, are you going into the office?
Sometimes there's not a lot of demand to be there right now, so yeah, but I think that might be changing based on the new guidelines they put out today. But yeah, so I mean, we've still got a lot of folks here. We're just gonna say, if you haven't added us already, I can repost the links. And yeah, so I mean, we do this once a month, usually the last Tuesday. So if you add us, you can keep an eye on when the next one will be coming up and what we'll be talking about.
One more thing before we complete. If you enjoyed watching us and you want to support us and you like the kind of content that we create, we do actually have a little donation link if you feel like throwing a little bit of extra coin our way, because we put on these events for free. So I know we do have a link. I think Tim might be grabbing it. And yeah, it really helps us kind of make sure that we continue to get interesting speakers and great content for everyone here. So we'll just grab that in a sec. Oh, also, I've almost forgot to mention, so again, this is recorded. Feel free to check out our YouTube channel as well, where you can kind of see this and other great recordings that we've had in the past. So awesome. Okay.
So yeah, links to all of our socials for if you want to watch past recordings on YouTube or talk with folks on Slack, or jump on Facebook or Instagram, and our tip jar as well is there. Yeah, and so I was just going to say that's the. I mean, any of those places are a good place to keep up with what's coming up next.
Cool. And if you have any ideas for another speaker that you'd like to bring in, please feel free to Slack us and recommend folks. We'd love to meet more awesome artists in Vancouver. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for hosting, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexander. See you, folks. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.